Hello everyone, this is Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's video we are going to create this beautiful card using the In Bloom stamp set and also create this ethereal background using our own DIY contact paper masks. I'm going to start today's project with the In Bloom combo set. As you can see, it comes with the stamp set in the front, and on the back side you have the matching dies. I'm going to pull out that main image and mount it here in my MISTI. I'm going to stamp it on 110-pound white cardstock in Memento Tuxedo Black. I'm using this ink today because it is a Copic friendly ink, and I'm going to do some Copic coloring. The Copics that I'm using are on screen so you can follow along, and I'm going to do a real quick review of my coloring process for it with Copics. I start with my lightest shade, then I move to my medium shade and color about 2/3 up with this medium shade. Once I finish that, I'll move to my darkest shade and color the lower third, or basically the lower part of whatever's in shadow. This is my darkest color. Once I finish that, I'll move to back to my medium shade and kind of blend that transition between the medium and the dark shade, and then I'll finish up with my lightest shade again and blend that transition between the light and the medium. I'm going to repeat this process for the second petal. Start with my lightest color again, then move to my medium shade, and then I finish up with my darkest shade, and then I work my way back through the medium shade again to blend the transition between the medium and the light, and then finish with the light again. So I went ahead and worked my way around and did the whole flower. Now I'm moving on to the center. I picked a very light yellow and then kind of a yellow green just for my darker parts. Now I'm moving to the stamen, and I'm going to color that in kind of grays because they're typically kind of a black color. So I started with light gray first, colored the very center, and then I'm coloring the very top of the stamen just a little bit, making sure to leave some of the white of the paper visible. Now I'm repeating that process with a darker gray, and again making sure I leave a little bit of the white visible just so it has a nice curve look to it. Now I'm finishing up with my darkest shade here, which is C7, and again going around and just doing the very tips. And after I finish that darker shade, I'll take some of my medium shade and my lighter shade and just blend out the transition a little bit between those three colors just so it's nice and smooth gradation. Now I'm going to move on to my leaf. So my colors again are on screen so you can follow along. Again, I always start with my lightest color. This time I didn't bother coloring the whole entire leaf. I just colored kind of the upper third with that lighter color. Now I'm moving on to my medium, starting at the back of the leaf and working up to the lighter shade, and now my darkest color, and just a small amount of that. Now, after I finish that darkest color, I blended with the medium and then finishing with blending with the lightest color. So pretty simple. Repeated that process for the remaining leaves and stem. And now I'm going to work on the girl. Just two colors picked out for her skin. Started with my lightest and then added a little bit of shadow with that darker color, and then blended out some of those areas just a little bit more with that lighter shade. Now for her cheek, I just popped in a little bit of pink, and now I'm working on her hair. And again, just two colors for hair, really simple. With these smaller areas, you usually don't need to use so many colors to get a nice gradation. For her dress, however, I did end up using three colors, a really light blue-green, and then working my way to a kind of a darker medium blue-green. And that, once I finish her dress, that is my Copic coloring is all done. Now that my coloring is all done, I will die cut that image out with the matching die. I also used the matching die to cut out some matching craft foam that I will later glue to the back side of the flower to add some dimension. So now I'm just getting my bearings here on my card, and I'm deciding right now that I do want something in that background to kind of really create some atmosphere, and I wanted to have some movement. So I decided to make a mask. I'm using some clear contact paper here, and I cut it down to basically about 6 inches square. So it's bigger than my A2 card front. And I'm going to remove my card here and kind of use some scissors to lay it flat out, and I've just grabbed a pencil and I'm going to create some kind of like U shapes. So I created a smaller one in the upper left, and now I'm getting a little bit bigger as I work my way down to the lower right corner, and I'm just freehanding tracing these, really simple, not worrying about being perfect. And once I've got those traced out, I'm going to grab my scissors here and cut each one of these U's out of the contact paper. While you're cutting, you do want to be mindful of your edge. You want to make it nice and smooth as possible. I kind of went back and rounded that edge a little bit. It was a tiny bit jagged. If your edges are all jagged, you will definitely see that when you do your ink blending. So that's something to be mindful of, just trying to keep it nice and round. So I went ahead and cut all 4 U's out, so I have a lot of variety in shape and size here, and I will definitely be using these and kind of playing when I create this background. So my general rule, or my general thought here, is that I want to start light in the upper corner and get darker towards the lower right corner. So I'm starting with a really light distress ink, just straight to the paper, ink blended some scattered straw. Now I've removed the backing on my first contact paper U, my smallest one, and now I'm blending more of that scattered straw right along the edge of that masking, of that mask or that contact paper. Then I adjusted that contact paper again and moved it up and ink blended a little bit more right along that edge. And so far that's created like 2 little crescents or 2 little U shapes on my card. Now I'm moving on to this second mask. This is the second smallest mask in this series of masks that I created, and I did overlap a little bit where I ink blended previously. That kind of protects those kind of U's that I made, and so when I start blending some more, I don't lose them with my darker shades of ink, which I've moved on to now. I've moved on to a slightly darker ink. This is this is spiced marmalade, and I just blended right along that edge again. And now I've readjusted, grabbed that smaller, went back to that smaller mask, placed it down, and did a little bit ink blending up there with the spiced marmalade, just because I felt like it was a little too light. It was not a nice transition from the light to the medium shade. So that's fun. You can really play around. You can go back. You don't be afraid. There's not a really hard, fast rule to this. I just played around till I kind of got the right look. My only guide was that I wanted it lighter in the left and darker towards the right. That was really my only guide. And I did want to see these. I really wanted these U's to be visible. So because I really wanted that kind of whoosh movement to kind of translate. So I'm now moving on to another mask here, blended some more of the spiced marmalade. You can really see the U's starting to appear. Again, I just repositioned that mask, covered kind of the area that I ink blended previously, and now I'm moving on to my third color. This is my final color. This is Ripe Persimmon. This is my darkest ink, so I'm starting kind of light here with it because I know I do want to do a couple more U's in the lower portion of this card. I do blend out to the very edge of the card base though this time. Previously I pretty much blended only right along the edge of that contact paper U. It's very similar to how you create clouds in the sky. When you have like a cloud mask, you just kind of blend right along the cloud line edge, and then you reposition that cloud mask and blend some more in a different area. This is actually a very similar process to that if you've done that before. So I just repositioned that mask again, and I'm doing some ink blending on the other side of the U. So just remember, you can blend on either side of the U. You don't always have to blend on the lower portion. And I wanted a little bit of that, more of that ripe persimmon to be kind of in the center, because I do want this, even though it gets kind of very kind of choppy and linear in that kind of whoosh area, I do want, you know, a mixture of the colors, so like a little bit of the darker, a little bit of the medium, a little of the lighter. I just think it has a really pretty look that way. So I am adding one more mask here. This is going to be my last U. I actually went back to my third largest mask here for blending, and now I'm really beefing up, or really kind of intensifying that ripe persimmon orange. And once I blend that, I'm pretty much done with this card. Remove the 2 remaining masks. You can layer them on top of each other if that's something you want to do too. I felt like it was still a little too light in that upper left corner, so I am blending a little bit more with the scattered straw and also the spice marmalade a little bit too, just so it's not so stark white. And once I kind of touch those up, my background is completely done. I really like the movement of these U's. It's going to add a lot of, really help to kind of tell a story for my card. So I wanted to add just a little bit more kind of the look or the illusion of atmosphere. So I grabbed my Gansai Tambi watercolors, mixed a little bit of water with the white paint, and now I'm just doing some little bit of splatters. This will just help to create that atmospheric, ethereal kind of look, which I think pairs really well for the images in the In Bloom stamp set. So I'm going to let that dry now, and now that it's dry, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. I grabbed my flower die cut again just to kind of get my positioning correct on my sentiment. The sentiment is from the In Bloom stamp set as well. I'm going to stamp it in Memento Tuxedo Black to keep the blacks the same intensity, and then I will now kind of finish up my card here by gluing my flower to the craft foam flower. I'm using Tombow Mono multi-liquid adhesive here, and I'll just glue that down. You may notice that that flower kind of had some grid lines on the back of that. That's because I'm using some recycle cardstock from Waffle Flower. These are the planner pages that had some misprint, and it's a really good cardstock, so I like to use it whenever possible. I'll just add glue to the back of the craft foam and then glue it down to the card, and that completes my card. I'll hold it up to the camera here so you can get a good look at all the details. I really like how this card turned out. I think the image with the background and the sentiment all pair really well together and kind of tell a little story. The sentiment says, "You make my heart sing," and the girl has her mouth open, and then you have that kind of whoosh, almost like music or wind. I just think it works really well together. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.